right, welcome back to the Carbon Cardboard Podcast. I'm your host, Brian, Q3 Cards, joined with my good friend, Scott, aka the F1 Castle. Scott, what a weekend.
It was very eventful.
Sapphire releases officially this past Friday. We'll talk about you opening quite a bit of cards.
A little bit.
On Fanatics Live. A Saturday race to start the season. As of recording, that was earlier this morning. So we're going to talk about that. Qualifying, race results. This is why we do this, my friend. The Formula One is a passion of both of ours. You've been a lifelong fan. I've only come on board, I guess 2021 was when I caught the bug. And actually, I caught the bug because of the cards first, and then Drive to Survive and watching the races. You the other way around. You started with watching the races and just conveniently fell into cards here. But
it's true.
What a weekend!
Yeah.
Wow. Just we're gonna go through all of this, but just overall, high level thoughts. Again, another marathon ripping session for you and the Queen and the Castle.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, the one good thing I'll say. Well, there's many good things to say, but one advantage to Sapphire mass ripping versus Chrome is it's way less cards. So does not take as long to get through a case. So
yeah, you're not talking. So it was about an hour or so for a Chrome case, which is 12 boxes. How long does it take you to go through a Sapphire case, which is 10 boxes, 8 packs per box?
I think it's roughly half, maybe a little bit more, just because I wasn't when I was doing Chrome, I don't know if you saw, I was I would go through the pack as fast as possible. I took my time a little bit more with these, just knowing that it wasn't going to be that crazy. So I think it probably clocked in. I mean, we streamed for 12 hours and change, but the first hour and change was actually just hanging out watching qualifying. So it was 11 hours and we got 18 cases in. So I'd say roughly 35 to 40 minutes, maybe 35-ish, around there.
Not bad at all. So Scott, you've got your own YouTube channel at the F1 Castle. So you already did a full breakdown of Sapphire. So I would highly recommend our listeners and viewers to go check that out. We're going to go high level. Mostly I want to pepper you with questions because I, in fact, haven't seen any of the cards in hand first. So you are going to be the eyes and ears of everybody at this point. And yeah, let's just dive in. So we've got an image on screen here. You just said, Scott, you went through 18 cases, which is 180 boxes, 1,440 packs. There's a lot that's different about Sapphire, and you can go check out your video to get a little bit more of the specifics here. But let's just high level for our audience here. What are the main differences of this Sapphire release compared to prior years? We've got 2020, 2021, 2022, and now the fourth Sapphire set for Formula One from Topps Chrome.
Yeah, so I think the largest difference from Sapphire 2023 to any other year of Sapphire is this is the first year that there are inserts of any kind. Right. So we have Sapphire Selections. That's what they've added in. Sapphire Selections, there's a base, there's an orange, there's red out of 5, and there's Pad Paraja for the Sapphire Selections. But then also new for this year is the Sapphire Selections autographs. These are extremely limited. There's only 10 drivers in the Sapphire Selections and Sapphire Selections autos checklist. And for the autos, you only get red out of 5 and then actually Superfractor out of 1. So there's only 60 total autos in the product. As you can see here, I haven't even hit a single one yet. So
hold on, Superfractor Sapphire.
That's right.
That's a lot of S's. I like that. I like that alliteration.
Right, Sapphire Selection Super. But yeah, so that's the biggest difference, is that this year we finally have some type of insert, because always every year The main difference between Chrome and Sapphire is that in Sapphire, you just get the base checklist, right? 1 through 200, and then your image variations. So this year in Chrome, there's turn up the lights, there's F1 armor, there's camber, there's, autos of 1977. None of that stuff is going to be in Sapphire. You're going to get the base 1 through 200 set. You're going to get just the image variations, no celebration variations, just the image variations. And then you're going to get Sapphire Selections and the Sapphire Selections autos.
I'm looking at the graphic that we've got up on screen here, Scott, and it seems like image variations are more rare than they've been in the past. 25 pulled in 18 cases, so you're maybe 1.5 per case. This Sapphire Selection, though, I think, in my opinion, and I guess I'm biased, but watching your stream and others, my God, like those things are breathtaking. Like,
yeah,
I've seen a lot in the F1 collecting community compare these to almost a homage to 2020, with the borderless design, and they just look fantastic. I mean, this is going to be a really cool set to chase, and as you said, they're very rare. Even just the selections without the auto, but then the autos, that's going to be a whole nother level of special to have even any of those cards.
Yeah, I mean, I think especially because you have to remember, like I was saying, the Sapphire Selections checklist. I mean, there's only 10 drivers on it, right? Like I think it's Max, Checo, Hamilton, Russell, Alonso, Prost, Stroll, Norris, Leclerc, and Hulkenberg. So there's only 10 total. And as you can see, I mean, granted, this is only 18 cases, right? It's still a small, percentage. Although, I mean, there's only 1,038 cases. So, it's a little bit larger of a percentage than 18 cases of Chrome would be. But you're seeing, between image variations, Sapphire Selections, maybe about 3 a case, I would say. Like if you combine IVs and SSs, if you combine those, you're going to hit roughly 3 a case. You're going to have some that have 2. I think I had one case that had 4. It had 2 Sapphire Selections and 2 image variations, but on average you're going to get 3 between those two. And like you said, I mean, Sapphire Selections, I think it does pay homage to 2020, right? There's no border. It's a little bit of a different design than the standard cards, right? It really leans in on that cracked ice look, and has a bit more like of a classic, right? It's in cursive. The Sapphire Selections, they are absolutely beautiful, and immediately when you open a pack, immediately when you got one. You can see they stand out, similar to the way that the Futero cards in Chrome stand out. Sapphire Selections really stand out in Sapphire when you're opening them.
One more question I had, Scott, about the image variations, and I'm probably not the only one to be questioning this, where there's no base Sapphire short print variations. They're all stamped tops. Yep. Why on earth are these out of 99 and not Aqua? Like Aqua, I heard you say this on the stream, so I'm just going to repeat this, but Aqua image variations has been a set that many have collected. I actually attempted and had it in hand for a little bit myself before I moved on to, hyper focus on something different. But you can't have, like, there's only going to be 3 Aqua sets of image variations if that's your jam. So I don't know. You've seen them; they look great, but it would have been nice if they were Aqua.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm torn, right? Because I think, like, on one hand, it's really nice to see the stamp on the base. Like if you think back to every other year, maybe besides 2020, because even if you got a base variation in 2020, it was still epic. But if you look at like any other year, you get a base variation, and it was like, oh,
it's like 1,000 of them or more, depending on.
Right. I mean, there's so many, they don't seem that special. Half the people that open them, if they're not educated, are thinking they're just base cards. So, I mean, the one good thing this year is that, they're stamped. You're gonna see them, and it adds just like a little, like a nice little extra thing to those base. But yeah, I mean, they're out of 99, right? Like the rest of the set has Aqua out of 99. Just just throw that aqua splash on them, guys. I mean, I think I would have loved to have seen that, and then just don't have the base variations. That's kind of my only gripe, is just make them aqua, don't have the base. I mean, why do it? But in the end, yeah, that's what we got, and it's still nice to hit them. Like, I mean, I've hit a base variation, image variation now. I think of almost every driver in the set. I'm pretty sure almost every driver I've hit. I mean, I think I finally, so we have our answer, by the way, on the Carlos signs. So the Carlos signs, we do have our answer. They did not switch it to the card 18 that we were kind of hoping, it looked
Mhm.
more in line. It's actually, of the two images, it's my lesser of the favorite. But it's the one where it's more zoomed out and he's holding up the flag. And you can see kind of all the flag. It's not the zoomed in shot where you can see like the crest flags. But I know we pulled a Max base, tons of Russell base, the Signs base, Hamilton base. Did Oh, you know what? We did pull a K Mag base. We didn't pull a Joe Guan Yu base. I think I only pulled two Joe variations. One was gold and one was orange. We pulled Albon base, Sargent base, Senna, and Schumacher base. So we did end up pulling all 10, which was nice. I think that was really cool that we pulled at least one image variation from all of the 10 drivers that have them. And I think it was actually the same. The only drivers that I haven't pulled Sapphire Selections, well, actually, it's only one driver. The only driver I haven't pulled a Sapphire Selections of is Alain Prost, actually. I
Hmm.
pulled everyone else, either their base or, orange or red. Haven't pulled a pad yet for Sapphire Selections. And like I said, haven't pulled a single auto, whether it be red or Superfractor, which is still legendary.
So before we get to your biggest hit, and which was started earlier in your day here, I just have, I always have questions, Scott. I am speaking for the people here, and you have all the information and the knowledge. So I'm going to ask about the actual cards. So because I think that's what people want to know, because 2022 was not good. Like quality wise, just the scratches on the surface, the roller marks on the front, they were thinner. 2022 Chrome far superior in that aspect. So I mean, it's Sapphire came out what, 2 weeks after the Chrome. So you've opened 18 cases of this. What are your thoughts about the quality of the cards, and should people be alarmed that this is another version of 2022 at all?
So if you're talking about like the base cards, I'll kind of look at this in two different ways. The base cards, very similar to the base of Chrome for
Hmm.
2023. You're going to see they're like the way they've been constructed looks almost identical. They're just, they layer on that cracked ice as well. So maybe it's got a little more to it than the Chrome do. As for the parallels, they feel very solid in hand. The thickness is still fairly similar, but you can tell they feel more solid. Like, I'm sure they weigh more, but like there's just a little bit more in your hand. And as for QC, there's always going to be like the things that you will always see with every single release, every product. Doesn't matter if it's Tops, Panini, Pokemon, like literally anything of any product, you're always going to see some centering issues. And this product does have some. I think overall centering has been pretty good, but some centering issues, and then some like print lines, right? You'll see some like print lines, and I'm not talking like, scratches. I'm talking like just the line that is
Hmm.
like the clean cut that sometimes grading doesn't take off for, because it's like that factory just print line. But so those two issues are, they're prevalent, but it's not as much as we've seen in other years. As for like scratches that we saw on a lot of the 2022, I don't know how that even happened, but
Hmm.
I have not seen any of that.
That's good to hear.
I have not seen just like the random, like you look like you took a piece of sandpaper and scratched it across the front. I have not seen that at all. I've seen minor, very minor like peel issues sometimes on the back of a few cards, but overall quality is better than 2022, I would say, and looks pretty solid overall.
That's good to hear. So I keep harping on 2022, but I mean, Topps should have done a lot better, and then we wouldn't even be talking about this. 2022 was prevalent for collation and sapphire. Like you could go through an entire case and end up with like 5 chartreuse of the same card. Like how many breakers out there kept, and it just stinks when you're doing like a team break or pick your driver break and one person makes out really well because they get 5 copies of one card and everybody else, doesn't eat, as like one of the terms that we say in the hobby here. How's that? I can't imagine it's that bad because there's so many less parallels.
Well, and that's what I was going to say is so first of all, I don't think it's as bad. Like I've seen a couple instances where it's like, oh wow, we hit 2 golds of the same card in the same case, or like we hit an orange and a gold. But like that's that'll just happen. I
Mm-hmm.
haven't noticed like, oh my gosh, we hit 4 of something. The one thing I will say, I will caveat it with, I mean, there's no chartreuse, there's no sepia, there's no green, so it would be harder to notice,
Yeah.
especially in real time. Because usually when you're taking those pictures, it's like, wow, I hit 5 chartreuse of something. Now, if you take that's out of 199, you go down to aqua, that's like 2 or 3, and it's just not going to be as noticeable. Like I'm sure there were tons of cases where I opened 2 aquas of the same one, and there may have been some where it was 3. I just don't think it'll be as big of an issue this year, simply because we don't have some of those higher parallels. The one thing I will say, I guess I will, because there were actually cases in 2022 where you would get 2 of the same red or like 3 of the same purple, and I have not seen that at all. I haven't seen that at all. So that is one good thing. And man, I tell you what, and I talked about it on my YouTube video on my channel, but the removal of chartreuse, sepia negative, and green, the out of 199s, out of 100, out of 75, man, every case feels absolutely juiced. Like
Mm.
you can still get a single box maybe where you get 3 aqua and like a gold. And that's the worst it can possibly be. I mean, think back to other years. There'd be boxes where you get 3 chartreuse and a sepia, and you're like, what are we doing here, guys?
Yep.
And it's just not possible anymore. And I think, I'll touch on this for a second, but I think people this year looked at Chrome pricing and they were like, that's solid. It was like 235 on tops, and like secondary market was somewhere in that range, right? Like you can do Percy's with most folks around like 250 or so. And I think they're like, that's a really good price. And then they looked at Sapphire and they're like, oh wow, 390 on tops, like that's a big jump. And on the secondary market, it's selling for over $500. But I think what people, even after one day, are starting to realize is like, guys, the print run is so low. It's lower than even 2020 by like 500 cases lower than
Wow.
2020. So I mean, it's the lowest Sapphire print run we've ever seen. We have Sapphire selections and autographs in there, and everything is out of 99 or less. So like it just feels so juice. Like I said, like you're getting reds consistently, you're getting multiple purples, oranges. Oranges come out like candy, man. I swear. Like, I mean, in a 2020 case, you'd open a whole case and you get 2 oranges, maybe 3, and you'd be like, oh, this is great. I feel like I'm getting like 4 or 5 in a case. Like it's just they come out so often. And golds, I mean, gold is like common to see in this product out of 50, which is great. So it's nice to see the change that they made there. I think they potentially over the last 2 years, not only with QC on Sapphire, but also with the you know lack of desire for some of those parallels, I think they've made some really good decisions for 2023, and in the end, we end up with an amazing product. So I'm really happy about that, and I'm sure all F1 collectors are pretty psyched about it. Even if the price is a little bit higher, I think it's worth it.
3 questions to end here. So you said secondary market wise, it's around $500 now. How soon do you think that jumps?
Very. I mean, you could look at Blowout. Blowout went on pre-sale for 4,000 a case, took it down within an hour. They had it up for 4,000, they took it down an hour later. They have it up now for 5,000, and I have on pretty good word that it's gonna be going up on Monday. So I mean, I think we're gonna see these things hit, maybe 750 a box when all is said and done. I don't know that they'll ever get up to like 1,000 or anything like insane like that. And again, this is not like financial advice by any means, but I wouldn't be surprised if we saw like 750 a box, just because again, it is just so limited. And like, yeah, some big cards are coming out, but big cards are going to continue to come out because it's such a short print run. And there were a lot of cases ripped on the first day. I mean, I think between myself and Pull Wax, we probably ripped like 35, 40 cases, right, on Fanatics Live.
I
So
mean, you ripped 2% of the of all the cases.
yeah, I would expect, between, because a lot of people got them in hand on Friday or even Thursday if they had ordered them from Montgomery Club. So I think right now, across all the breakers that have done stuff and everything, we're probably through like 10% of the print run. I would say roughly like 100 cases have gone down, which is significant, right? I mean, I think, and now everyone's going to get the stuff that I wasn't even able to order from Tops.com because I was streaming. I wasn't even able to order. I would have picked up, max allotment of cases and boxes. I think they capped at 4 boxes and
4 bucks, yeah.
maybe 1 case, I think. But it's all secondary market too. I mean, I'm pretty sure that Tops and Fanatics don't have any more now. So I think it's all out there. So, and when that happens, I mean, the price is just bound to go up because the demand also seems extremely high. Like demand for Chrome, if you look at last year, demand for Chrome is always massive right away, right? Because we haven't had a new product for forever. And then the way this year, though, that I think that people have really latched on to Sapphire, I think it's because they know how limited the print is. They see the Sapphire selections, they see all the low color, and like people are really excited about it this year versus prior years when you got 7 of the same chartreuse card in a case. So I think this year Sapphire is really fun. I'm gonna die on this hill though. I think the best break format, and you'll see me running a ton of it, is going to be mixers. I think Chrome, because Chrome this year is so unique in how many inserts they have. Like we said earlier, F1 armor, turn up the lights, hidden gems, all of these different inserts. And then, of course, autos. I think it's going to be a really fun experience to join a break where you've got Chrome and then you've got Sapphire, and like it's just that balance of the two. I think is really fun for collectors. And Chrome is obviously much cheaper, right? I think we're basically already at a place where a Chrome box is roughly half the price of Sapphire. And if you look at other years, 2021 and 2022 specifically, they're like even in price. Chrome actually might even be a little bit more expensive. So I think this is the first year where it's kind of back to 2020, right? In terms of like Sapphire is roughly twice as expensive as Chrome. And I think that's the way it should be. And I think, collectors are kind of, voting with their wallets, so to speak. And we'll see that kind of continue.
2023 Chrome or 2023 Sapphire. You got to pick one.
Oh man, I'd probably take Sapphire. Just because I mean the print run is so limited. And it's the first time they've ever had autos in it. Like, listen, I love Chrome because of all the inserts they've added and F1 armor. As someone was asking me, they said, would you take F1 armor out of 50 or like a base Sapphire selections? And I'll take F1 armor all day long. I still think that is my favorite card that they produced this year. Is F1 armor. So I mean, there's still a lot to be said for Chrome, but yeah, if I'm gonna open, give me 2 boxes of Chrome or 1 box of Sapphire. I'm a Sapphire guy. I've always been Sapphire. Like we said, we built the F1 castle on 2020 Sapphire. And I'm staring at like 40 boxes of 2020 Sapphire off screen. So I'm a Sapphire guy. I always will be. I love Chrome, but yeah, I'll take Sapphire.
All right. It's only been a couple days, actually 2 days. Rank the 4 Sapphire sets, worst to best.
worst to best. 22, 21, 23, 2020.
All right, no surprise there.
Yeah, can't beat 20.
No, you can't beat 2020. It's the OG. So before we talk about Supermax dominating Bahrain today, and we can talk spoilers because obviously we're recording this after the race has occurred. And if you're listening to this show, watching this show, and you haven't seen the race yet, I think you might have found the wrong channel. But
Hit pause.
hit pause, and we'll talk about that. But obviously, it's right in the title there, so we kind of gave that away. So Scott, day 1, box 1, pack 2, only in the F1 Castle.
Yeah, this is crazy. I mean, this was wild because we're getting set up all day long. I have a significant amount of cases, right? And so, when I do stuff on Instagram, we're doing like, 4 boxes or something. I'll bring out like 8 boxes and let folks choose and everything. But we have a huge slate of breaks to run and everything. And like, so generally when I'm on Fanatics Live and I'm running big stuff, like I'm just grabbing cases. Like I'm just going to take them. I'm going to put them up on the wall. Like that's what you're ripping. So, I grabbed 10 cases, initially for our first 2 5-case breaks. And we were sitting there filling some of the last spots and watching qualifying. And so when it's getting closer, it's like 15 minutes left in qualifying. I was like, all right, I'm going to start opening these, just to get the boxes out, right? We couldn't open until noon Eastern, because I think that's when maybe it went live on tops.com, but we couldn't open until noon. So at like 11:45, I'm opening the 5 cases that we're going to rip for the first one. And I'm just stacking all of the boxes, literally just stacking the boxes on the wall. So I opened the first, 4 cases, put them up across the wall. And then the last case, like I kind of stack up on the top in the middle. And then we get started and I grab, I think I grabbed a case worth of packs. You'd have to go back and watch the video, but I think I grabbed a case worth of packs and like opened all of them, stack them up, stack them up, stack them up. So I've got, 80 packs in front on the stream there. And, first pack, I don't think we hit anything. Maybe we did. I don't remember. But second pack, I literally, because you can always see it's impossible. Everyone says no peak. Like, dude, it is, especially with these, like, it's just so hard to not see the color, right? So second pack, I open it and I'm like, no way. Like, you're kidding me. I turned to Erica, the queen of the castle, who was with me all day long. She was amazing, by the way. So I turned to her and I was like, Pad. She's like, what? I'm like, Pad. She's like, are you serious? I was like, get the camera out. Like, I was like, I have no idea what we have here. Like, I literally, like, I also with this, I actually try not to peek because it spoils so quickly. Because like if you were to peek from the bottom, right, you see the name instantly. And so you kind of go from the top. But here I was like, I'm just gonna rip it off. So I knew it was a pad, and bam, rip it off. And I had no idea that we were going to be hitting in the second pack open on the day. Like it was like 12:03, maybe. And we hit the Charles Leclerc 1 of 1 Pat Baraja portrait. I mean, I went nuts. There's plenty of video footage evidence of that, but I went crazy. And I mean, obviously, ended up being the best hit of the day, because very hard to top that. I think there was probably only maybe one other card that was hit that day by anybody that was a bigger card. So, I mean, just to hit that right at the beginning was awesome, right? Because it just gets the energy, gets everything super pumped right away. So it was really, really cool. It was funny because the guy I hit it for racing Chronos, Scott, wasn't there because he, it was a Friday, right? Like, so he's working, and everyone's messaging him. Like he told me he got dozens of messages, Instagram, texts there on Fanatics Live. Like everyone was like, dude, oh my God, oh my God. And so he's like telling people like, I'm on a business meeting. Like I'm going to hop in when I can. And like, so he hopped in like, hours later and he's like, I heard I hit something like pretty big. So, yeah, no, we've talked since, but amazing to see. Biggest card I pulled all day long. One of the biggest in the product. I mean, you'd think probably top 20 or so. in the entire product. But yeah, was awesome, especially the day before a race. Was really cool to see that big of a hit.
Yeah, for sure. Congrats to Racing and Kronos on this one. One of the biggest Ferrari fans I know, and if you're in the
Yeah.
hobby, you know Racing and Kronos. So congratulations, and man, just that, like you said, that just starts your day off well, and just the hits kept coming on
Yeah.
Fanatics Live.
And it was funny too because so you saw in that graphic earlier that I hit 3 pad barrages. I hit all 3 of those in the first 5 cases. And, like, again, I'm just grabbing random cases, like, they all came from the same place, and I'm just grabbing random cases, and all 3 of the pad barrages actually happened to come out in the first 5 cases, and then I didn't hit another one the entire rest of the day, the other 13 cases. Now, granted, the average, you should hit one like every 7 or 8 cases anyways. So like I'm still ahead of the curve as far as that is concerned. But yeah, it was just funny to me. I mean, if you were in that first 5 caser, you probably did pretty well.
Well, that's a good transition. Talking about somebody that did really well this weekend, we had a race. I'm still trying to find time to get through Drive to Survive, Scott, but I certainly made time today on a Saturday to watch the first race of the Formula One season. Qualifying was on Friday. And I mean, it was a race. I've already seen people saying it wasn't the most exciting, but as we'll talk about many times going forward in this show, is there's always something to tune into. Even if Max Verstappen is 20 seconds ahead of everybody else, there's always battles down the field, teammates fighting. We'll talk about that. So just overall thoughts about the whole weekend, Scott, qualifying, any surprises, and then obviously let's talk the race here too.
Yeah, so I mean, first thing I'll say is it was really fun that qualifying was live like Friday during the stream because on Fanatics Live we literally sat there and we watched qualifying together. It was really fun. The Queen and I were like predicting who were going to be the 5 going out and everything and talking about it. But I think so qualifying surprises. So I had predicted this to happen. It happened. Max got pole, but interestingly enough, the fastest time across the entire qualifying Q1, Q2, Q3 was actually set by Charles Leclerc in Q2. He set a time that was faster than Max's pole time in Q3. So, Ferrari is right there when it comes to qualifying, and Mercedes, it looks very close on one lap. And Lando said that if he hadn't made, an error in sector 1, that he would have been on the front row. So I think the good thing is that, those 4 teams and Aston, especially in the hands of Alonso, not that far behind. I think those 4 teams on a given track, any one of those 8 drivers could get pole. Any one of those 8 drivers could get pole, which is very exciting. I think another surprise in qualifying, Nico Hulkenberg slipping into Q3 was very nice. And now we've seen that in the past at Haas, they can qualify well and then they go backwards in the race. And poor Nico, he was in 19th by the end of the first lap. Granted, it wasn't just because he got passed; it was getting hit and stuff. But yeah, I mean, it was a good race overall. I mean, it's always exciting. First race of the year, kind of. They could all just stay in the same place and do procession, and I'd still be excited. But Max covered off Leclerc right at the beginning, and then he just had the pace. He just had the pace, and Leclerc had to worry about people behind and couldn't chase after him. Leclerc was also having a ton of issues, I think, with his brake balance and brake bias because he was locking up all the time. Like
Mm-hmm.
like there are meme graphics about Leclerc's uh route on the track, and it's just every turn he's just going wide because he locked up and went wide a lot. But I think something that is actually they can kind of hold their head high is that even though that happened, the pace kind of came to him towards the end, and he was not too far off. I mean, he passed George Russell, who was up there looking like he was going to get a podium for the majority of the day. So Ferrari's race pace looks much stronger than last year. I mean, Sainz was 2 seconds off Perez at the end of the day, and then Leclerc's right there, so they finished 3rd and 4th. But Max is definitely in another league right now. I mean, the only way I can envisage, at least on this type of track, right? There's always going to be the caveat of like, okay, we've only done one type of circuit. Let's see how they go at Jeddah. Let's see how they go in Australia. Let's see how they go. Like we're not going to really know, but it does look a little foreboding. Like Max in that car. He's like Toto said, he's in another galaxy, right? I mean, he is in such control. His fastest lap was like a second and a half faster than anyone else's fastest lap. So he looks like the guy to beat. We're gonna need some other folks to out qualify him, right? Is really what's gonna have to happen. Because if Max starts at the front and just gets away and is at the front at the end of turn one, like unless they have reliability or pit stop or some kind of issues, yeah, I mean, you'd be hard pressed to bet against him. So, but also, throughout the field, there were some very spicy inter-team battles.
Let me
Visa
ask you
Cash App
about
Red Bull.
the RB team, the Visa Cash App. I'm going to mispronounce that so many different times this season until they eventually change that. But we'll just call them the RB or the Racing Bulls or whatever they were supposed to be. But Yuki and Ricardo, that was quite. I just lost Scott on video here, but hopefully we get him back here.
Still hearing audio.
Okay, all right. So, anyways, Scott, like, wow, that got really spicy here at the end.
Yeah, no, it did, and I know we got you up on the screen, but it really did. I mean, really, what happened is we saw different strategies between the two, right? Ricardo went to softs for the 3rd stint while Yuki was on hards. And Ricardo even said after the race that, they had talked about it before the race that it might happen where Ricardo is going to be faster towards the end of the race because he's on the softer rubber. So they got in a situation where Yuki is less than a second behind K-Mag, and then Danny Rick is less than a second behind Yuki coming up on him. And they asked Yuki to switch the cars around to give Danny Rick a chance to go catch K-Mag because Yuki had a few laps behind K-Mag and wasn't getting it done, right? So Yuki was not very happy about this. He was actually quite the opposite. And initially kind of rebuffed the team and then didn't let him pass in a great place, right? I mean, the best place to let him pass would have been on that main straight heading into turn one. And he waited into the section in like turn 2, 3, where, Danny Rick got past him, but then he was 1.8 seconds adrift of Kevin Magnussen. So then it took him another, like 3 or 4 laps to get back into like attacking range. And then by then the soft tires are gone. So he couldn't even get past him. And, then Yuki's saying, oh, he's so slow, because then he's behind him. But Danny Rick had to munch up his soft tires to try to get back up to K-Mag. So it was a whole mess of issues. And then it was highlighted by at the end on the cool down lap, Danny Rick is kind of going and Yuki goes blazing into one of the turns and kind of goes wide. Danny Rick just casually goes by him and is going down the next straight, and Yuki rips past him, like dives up the inside on his own teammate on the cool down lap. And Danny Rick was none too pleased about that. But yeah, I mean, I think Danny Rick is fairly mature, right? He had an interview after the race, and he was saying all the right things, like, hey, listen, I think a little bit of immaturity on Yuki's part. We're going to talk about it. We'll figure it all out. And listen, if there's anything that we know about Yuki, and it's the reason some people love him and it's the reason some people hate him, he is a fiery character when he is in that car. He is a lovable teddy bear when he is outside of the car. But when he is in the car, he turns into another person. He's got like that gamer mentality, right? So he was not going to take it lying down. He was pissed, and he let the team and the entire world know it.
Yeah, that was definitely shocking to see. And I'm just trying to think here, Scott, of a couple of the other things. The McLarens and the Mercedes kind of split. I don't think that this was McLaren's preferred track, and they've even said as such. They're one of the teams that are very forthcoming out front, being like, "This is going to be, a track we're either going to struggle at, or we think this is a McLaren track that will do well." So, positive sign. Both cars in the points, both drivers in the points. That did not happen for several races last season. So, they're already on a better footing than they were to start last season. So, very eager to see hopefully Lando get his first race win, Oscar continue to do well, that McLaren team can take the fight to Red Bull and the other teams there. I'll end this before we also talk briefly here about the F2 race, is something that you had predicted. And I don't know if we had done this, if it was on one of your streams or if it was already, we're only on our third episode, and I've already forget what we talked about in some of the other ones. But Carlos Sainz, he put a lot of people on notice today. I've always been a big Carlos Sainz fan, very underrated, underappreciated. He did some things today, and I would not be surprised, Scott, to see him be one of the next drivers that kind of has his future solidified, because as much as I'd love to see Danny Ricciardo as teammates with Max again, it'd be pretty spicy to have Sainz and Max. They were both with Toro Rosso together, coming up as rookies. So it'd be very interesting to see them paired up again. And it might be sacrilegious to say this, but I prefer Sainz to Perez in equal machinery.
Yeah, one of my kind of bold preseason predictions, right, is that both of the drivers that are leaving their teams, so Sainz and Hamilton, they're both going to beat their teammate. Now, Russell got the better of Hamilton this week, but yeah, Sainz just drove a consistent, clean race, and that is something that he is known for doing, right? He can always drive a consistent, clean race, and I wouldn't mind seeing him in the Red Bull. I love Checo. I love Perez. We'll have to see how he performs the rest of the season, whether he can kind of take it to Max or not. But I'm sure Sainz would love to have a chance. And there's other seats that are open too, right? Everyone's talking about Antonelli going to Mercedes, but they might want to let him run another year in F2. He did skip Formula 3, so they might want to let him do 2 years in F2 before they bring him up, or they might want to throw him in a Williams, and maybe that leaves a seat open. Maybe Sainz goes to Mercedes. I hope that Sainz ends up with a good seat. The other option, right, I think outside of Red Bull and Mercedes, which are two amazing seats, the only other option I really see for Sainz that makes sense is if he goes to stake F1 team, just because Audi is coming there in 2026, right? And there's been links of him going there to Audi in 2026. So maybe he goes there a year early to bet in with the team. There's gonna be a lot of the same people there, right? Learn the engineers, the strategists, etc. So potentially that's an area for him. But yeah, it would certainly be spicy to see. They both came in to Formula One in the same year, 2015, as young rookies with Toro Rosso. It'd be crazy to see them back together again, 10 years later, right? 2025.
I can't help but think, if you're a Scuderia fan, that maybe they didn't make the right driver decision, because I don't know. Hamilton is the splashy name, and obviously, if you have the opportunity to get a 7-time world champion, you do it. But that's just on paper. But man, if you're talking with your heart, man, if you're a Ferrari fan, another couple of years of Sainz and Leclerc would not be the worst in the world. But the ink's already dry on the paperwork. And it'd be hard to back out of that. But man, I think in general, taking this race result to the cardboard as we talk here, I still think Sainz is severely undervalued in terms of the card market. He's got some really good cards out there, and we'll talk about these as in future episodes and stuff like that. Some really kind of iconic cards. I know, like in 2021, card number 54 with his helmet. That's one of his probably best cards that Topps has done. So there's so many different we could take each driver and go through our favorite photos that Topps has done. But
Later
I'm
segment.
digressing a little bit here. But I just because he's losing his seat at Ferrari, I think there's still not that we're giving an investing advice here, but I think you shouldn't shy away from Sainz cards just because he's moving teams.
Yeah. No, I mean, I tend to agree, right? I think he showed it in this race. He's still got what it takes to race at a high level if given the machinery. So, I think, Leclerc has always been a driver. He's got like higher peaks and lower valleys kind of a thing compared to Sainz. Sainz is just Mr. Consistency. I mean, I know other drivers have been deemed that, but I mean, I would peg Sainz as someone who's always been consistent, no matter what team he's been on, really. I mean, I think his first year in Ferrari, it was tough getting used to that new car and everything, but that car was a handful, right? It wasn't just him that was making mistakes. So I think so far he's looking pretty good in 2024. So I expect to see big things from Sainz throughout the year. He's gotten off to a good start. If he qualifies a little bit higher in Jeddah, maybe he's ahead of Perez. I don't know, right? We'll have to see. But I mean, starting off the year with a podium is pretty impressive.
So this episode's turned into a little bit longer than we anticipated, but it was just like this special combination of first race, Sapphire releasing. Scott, just let's spend like 1 or 2 minutes here on the Formula 2 race and, qualifying here. I'm already seeing people calling Oliver Behrman a bum because he didn't hit the top 10. I mean, come on, guys. It's one race. Kimi Antonelli got his first point in F2, finishing 10th, but let's talk about this because this is something that we'll follow along as well, because these are the drivers that will potentially be available to the Formula One teams. Very few of these guys will actually make it, but that makes prospecting a little fun. So overall, what do we take out of this first weekend from the F2 results here?
So the first thing we have to talk about, if we're talking about F2, is, as everyone has heard, if you've been watching any of the F2 coverage over the weekend, is the boy from Barbados, Zane Maloney, in round 1 does the double, wins the sprint race. He had to come back from 8th. He started 8th in the sprint race all the way up to first, had some amazing overtakes, including the overtake for the lead. Absolutely phenomenal. And then in the feature race, at turn 1, lap 1, takes the lead, never look back. So Zane Maloney looks extremely impressive. So, I mean, expect to see him broken out in breaks and the price go up a little bit on Zane. But, I mean, he's starting the season really well. He's a double win. I mean, that's really good for the standings, right? There's only 13 rounds, guys. Remember that in Formula 2. This is not a 24 round thing. So that's 1/13 gone already, right? Like 8% or so. So, I mean, I think that's the biggest takeaway. Another takeaway, Kush Miney looked really good. He set pole in qualifying, unfortunately had it stripped away due to a technical infringement, but then from the back of the grid came all the way up to 7th in the feature race. So Kush Miney's looking really good. I think those two are looking great. Jack Crawford also looking good. He finished 2nd in the sprint race and then was battling for, potential podium positions in the race. And at his pit stop, his engine shut down and they restarted it and brought him out, and then he had contact. Lost me again on camera, but then he had contact coming out of the pit lane. It is unfortunate for him, so ended up with a DNF. In terms of some of the drivers that we have now kind of been propping up, right? Behrman and Martins, Prema, Behrman's team, who Antonelli's on, they have really struggled so far through testing and in round 1 to really understand the cars. Because, guys, you got to remember, the Formula 2 cars are brand new for this year, completely different. Now, Prema is a storied team. They will get on top of it. But as of right now, they've got a little bit of work to do to understand the car and set it up a bit better for both Antonelli and Behrman. So I wouldn't take too much away from Behrman not having a great first race. I think they'll get back on it. And then Victor Martins was actually, I mean, he was in contention for the win, or at least a podium, and his engine died out on track. So he again, don't take too much away from that. But yeah, I mean, the stars of the show, or the star of the show so far, is Zane Maloney, and the boy from Barbados.
Oh man, it's gonna be really fun to track all this and as it relates to the cardboard here. So I know, Scott, we're at 15 minutes here. Oh well. We scheduling wise, we've just ironing out the schedule a little bit. We'll get to be a little bit more consistent. It's something we're striving for, and at least getting this content out. Scott, what have you got coming up for breaks in the F1 Castle?
So we did kind of a Sapphire marathon on Fanatics Live on Friday, and now on Sunday, actually, I'm going to be ripping over on Instagram. I have a Sapphire case that, as the time of recording is almost full. By the time this is posted, probably already be filled. And then, like I said, I'm running some mixers, half case of Chrome, half case of Sapphire. I think that's going to be really fun rips. So 2 of those, and then I've got a Chrome case. So I'm going to be running all those on Sunday. Should be a ton of fun. Looking forward to that. And then we'll be back on Fanatics Live and Instagram kind of all throughout next week, a mixture of Chrome and Sapphire.
Awesome stuff. Looking forward to it, and want to see you get those first Sapphire Selection autos here, and then we can update that graphic going forward. Wait. So, all right, Scott, we put our heads together. Well, mostly you put your head together, and we have an outro now. We've given this some thought. We're going to try this out, see how it fits, and I have a feeling this one will stick, though. So, what do you got, my friend?
All right, everybody. Well, collect your cardboard and keep it carbon.